Jakub Voracek's second stint in Columbus was disappointing and a big waste of time. His season review is today on Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Hayden. I'm here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before I get going here, I want to thank you all for making this your first listen every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, and the SiriusXM app. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Jakub Voracek is our subject of discussion today. He was originally drafted by the Blue Jackets back in 2007. He spent 3 years here in Columbus. The Blue Jackets traded him away to Philadelphia. He spent 10 seasons in Philly. Then he was traded back to Columbus for Cam Atkinson. He played for one full season here, and then he got his second season going, got about 11 games in, got a concussion. Turns out he had 7 or 8 concussions throughout his career, and that this one really put him over the top. He was out indefinitely. The Blue Jackets traded him to Arizona. Many speculate that his career is over. We haven't seen an official announcement on his retirement. Maybe that is out there and I have just completely missed it. I'm sorry, guys. So sorry. I know I don't know as much puck as some of you out there. So my apologies. But yeah, he's done. Cam Atkinson's still playing. I know, Josh from our bar, you don't have to tell me that the Blue Jackets can't handle having Cam Atkinson on this team. They can't afford to have a player like Cam Atkinson taking up huge minutes when they have young guys on the wings that they need to develop. I know that, but I still miss Cam Atkinson. Can I just say that? Can I be man enough to say that me as a fan misses Cam Atkinson and that Jakub Voracek, his second stint here was pointless and unnecessary? And at the time, I know Jarmo used the words complexion when he said, like, I remember that so specifically. Like, I don't even have to go back and look at the clip of Jarmo talking about this trade, because like when this trade happened, the first thing I did was fire up Jarmo, and I just needed to know from the man himself, like, why did we make this move? And he says, I felt like it changed the complexion of our team. I remember he used that word complexion, and I was like, that's perfect. He's so right. Jarmo nailed it. He did change the complexion of our team. We traded away a guy that is really only good at scoring goals, like occasionally, and more than occasionally. I got to give him flowers. 200 goals in 700 NHL games, I think, for Cam Atkinson. That's very, very good. Don't get me wrong, but that's kind of all he did. He wasn't really great at moving the puck. So many times as a fan, I could sit there and say, Cam should have made that pass. Cam should have made that pass. Cam shouldn't have made that pass. Cam should have shot it there. Like, it was getting to that point at the end of Cam Atkinson's tenure as a Blue Jacket, to where it was like, okay, maybe he needs a change of scenery. And maybe this team just needs something else, a different player entirely. And the Jackets went and got a player the same age as Cam Atkinson, Jakub Voracek, coming in. And he came in and instantly started racking up the assist numbers, which was not something Cam Atkinson was ever doing. Cam was never racking up the assist numbers. Jakub Voracek came in for the second time and just instantly started racking up the assist numbers. He would literally pass up on wide open goal opportunities. I don't know if like he came to Columbus and there was somewhere in his contract he had an incentive to rack up the assist numbers, but he was really racking them up. And it was really, really exciting because, hey, I like a good pass. I love a good, wrist shot too towards the net. But ultimately, I think Blue Jackets fans really get at the edge of their seat. Any hockey fan really gets at their edge of their seat when they see some puck moving offense. And Jakub Voracek was a winger that came in and really delivered a lot of puck moving offense. And that was really, really exciting because the Blue Jackets have shooters all over the place now. We have Johnny Gaudreau on the ice. We have Patrick Laine on the ice. We have Zach Werenski. Like, we have Alexander Texier. He was a guy that we were looking at. Emil Bemstrom at the time. We were like, man, he's a really good shooter. And we had all these dudes that we were really, really excited about. We knew Jakub Voracek was going to be moving the puck around to him. I thought it was going to be a good future. I thought it was going to be a bright future for Jakub Voracek in Columbus a second time around. It turns out it ended up being nothing. Like, when I think of Jakub Voracek a second time around, I think of Brad Larson. And when I think of Brad Larson, I think of bad Blue Jackets hockey. So I don't have good thoughts when I sit there and I think about Jakub Voracek's career in Columbus, because it's not like he played any playoff games his first 3 years in Columbus either. Like, it just was kind of nothing for him. He's a really, really fun and interesting player. He had an interview with Spit and Chicklets a couple of years ago and he had some really funny stories about what he was saying about his time in Columbus and certain places on High Street he liked to visit. And he's a really fun and interesting guy. But at the end of the day, he's not more than really that. He's a really skillful player that is really, really good at passing. But outside of that, I'm not going to remember too much about Jakub Voracek, sadly. And it's sad because I'm going to remember a lot more of Cam Atkinson as a Blue Jacket. And the Blue Jackets traded away Cam Atkinson, and Cam Atkinson's just 34 years old, still out there playing. That was really, really long-winded, I know, and I still need to give out a letter grade for our boy Jakub Voracek, and I promise I will do that in just a second. First, I want to tell you about my favorite pair of shorts, Birddogs. These shorts are so awesome. Birddogs make you look good. Birddog shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you that truly sculpted look. Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, except they fit way better. They obviously fit way better than regular shorts that are made of that stiff, restricting cotton. That was a big, big issue. Birddogs fixed that issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice any movement. Birddogs also uses an anti-stink, sweat, wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. They are seriously so awesome. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter the promo code LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL, or use the promo code LockedOnNHL for that free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. I promise you. They are a great, great summer short. Birddogs. Time to give out a letter grade for this guy, Jakub Voracek, who spent 3 years in Columbus, spent 10 years in Philly, and then spent 2 years in Columbus. I'm going to give him a letter grade for his career as a Blue Jacket, so I'm not going to include those 10 seasons he played in Philly. I don't give a crap about them. He didn't even win a cup, so it's not even worth talking about. He had some good years there, don't get me wrong, but they're not worth talking about. I'm going to give him a C. I'm going to give him a C for his time as a Blue Jacket. Listen, when I think of Jakub Voracek, I think of a very intelligent hockey player, a very skillful hockey player. But outside of that, it's really not much. It's really going to be in 5 years. I probably will remember a guy that looked like Artemi Panarin, and played kind of like Artemi Panarin, but at the end of the day, I know he wasn't Artemi Panarin, so he never played a playoff game for Columbus, so he wasn't a part of any good teams that I would revere and look back on, and or at least like to reflect on, like, man, that was a really good team. So it's just a C for Jakub Voracek. I think at the time the Blue Jackets traded for him the second time around, it was like, okay, yeah, this is good. This is good. The Blue Jackets need to separate themselves from Cam Atkinson. It's tough. They kind of did Cam pretty dirty, because I think they could have gotten more back. In hindsight, I feel like they could have gotten more back. But nobody could have predicted that Jakub Voracek was going to go on, get his 9th concussion, apparently. And I say apparently, as in, like, I had no idea that was the case. I'm not saying that those concussions are fake by no means. Of course not. But the Blue Jackets, like, I didn't know that. When the Blue Jackets traded for Jakub Voracek, I was very excited about it. I was like, okay, they're getting a winger who likes to move the puck around. Like, that's great. Cam Atkinson was a guy that liked to catch the puck, and then he pushes and drives the net, which is also great. But it seemed like the Blue Jackets were due for a shakeup, and Jakub Voracek was the perfect answer at that time. It turns out, hindsight is 2020. It ended up not being a very good trade. So what? He still was a good player when he did play. He still put up a lot of big assist numbers. He didn't really score as much as I'd like to, but I do still have a soft spot for any player that just wants to go out there and rack up the assist numbers. I think that's hilarious. I think that's funny. I look at you as a player that likes to share the puck, which are the best type of players to play with anyways. So I love you, Jakub Voracek, but it's just a C for you as your time as a Blue Jacket. I don't really know if anybody's going to contend that. Maybe there is somebody that will contend that I'm not allowed to miss Cam Atkinson and not allowed to think of that trade as a flop. But, and even though it was the right thing at the right time, I still think that trade was a flop because Cam Atkinson's still doing it in the league. He's still putting up 20 goals a year, which I think is very, very cool as well. All right, I saw Cam Atkinson play in person. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in just a second. But before I do that, I want to tell you guys about FanDuel. That's right, FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel. You get 10 times your first bet amount and bonus bets up to $200. That's right, just $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 that you can spend betting everything from money line to over-unders to who you think is going to hit the first home run to no runs in the first inning. That's a big bet that a lot of people are doing. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 of bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right. I took a little lunch trip today over to Chiller North to watch the inaugural Cap City Elite League game between the Battery Academy, I believe, and 614 Hockey. And people might be sitting here thinking, what the heck is that? Well, if you tuned into the last episode of Locked On, you would already know what this is. But for those that maybe didn't tune in to the last episode of Locked On Blue Jackets, I will tell you that the Cap City Elite League is essentially a glorified adult league that Blue Jackets players that live in Columbus during the summer can play in. I saw, and there's other NHL players that live in Columbus. Surprise. Wow. There's NHL players that don't play for the Blue Jackets that live in Columbus. Yes, Jack Johnson. I saw him play today. I saw Cam Atkinson play today. I already said that. Boone Jenner was a current Blue Jacket that played today. He played for Battery, which is Cam Atkinson's team. Jack Johnson was playing for Cam Atkinson's team, Battery. The other team was 614 Hockey, which I saw Sean Crowley and Jack Roslovic play for. There is also two other teams that I did not see play, and I know Cole Sillinger is on one of those teams. There's another team that has another Blue Jacket on it. I'm sorry, I don't know who it is off the top of my head. So this is a very, very exciting thing that's going on. I'm really glad they're doing this. This is much better than the players just skating kind of in private. They are skating in an adult league. It's a chance for fans that want to go catch them play for free. I just walked right into the rink, went up to the mezzanine, and sat there with my Wendy's. I got Wendy's. Maybe I shouldn't have said that because they're not a sponsor. Maybe they are a sponsor. I have no idea. But I had the $5 biggie bag, was sitting there eating my Wendy's, watching Cam Atkinson just play like 20 feet in front of me. It was pretty awesome. catching tape-to-tape passes from Jack Johnson. Boo, obviously, I don't love Jack Johnson, but I got to admit, Jack Johnson still looks like he can play. And they were just playing 3-on-3. That's what this league is. They had some pretty cool jerseys. The not First Ohio Battery, but the Battery Academy team had some nice light blue jerseys going on. And the 614 hockey team had this nice, like, hot pink kind of uniform, like 90s looking uniform going on, which was really cool. And I had a couple hot takes from this game, a couple dangerously hot takes that I think should, like, if I keep going to these games and I keep having these takes, maybe I should either stop doing this podcast or I should stop going to those games, one or the other. But Jack Roslovic, that guy is really fun to watch play hockey. He's really, really skillful. And I know, like, I watched him play in a non-contact league. And honestly, it's very, very amazing to watch what these guys can do when the contact is not there. Because when they can just play and it's just creativity for them, they don't have to think about, protecting themselves from hit or anything like that. Or they're just relaxed because they're not playing on the intense pressure of having to win for their NHL team. The amazing stuff can happen, man. It was sauce all over the ice. It was backhand sauce, forehand sauce, tape-to-tape passes. Jack Roslovic has some insane dangles, and we know that from just watching him play on NHL ice in an NHL game. He can really deke through some guys. But Cam Atkinson, I mean, getting to watch him again in person was really, really nice. He's so talented. I mean, he's like, if I had to give you one former Blue Jacket to just take a shootout opportunity, I'm probably picking Cam Atkinson. I feel like that dude really, really specializes at beating the goalie 1-on-0, and that was shown today at the Cap City Elite game, which I think is cool for any fan to just waltz in and see. It was a decent crowd. I think, honestly, like an Orange versus Liberty hockey game would probably get more fans. It shouldn't get more fans because that's just high school hockey compared to the level of hockey the folks that went out to the chiller got to watch. But then again, it's a Tuesday. It was the middle of the day. It was it was noon. So I did see, like, the guy sitting next to me up in the mezz. He was also in his work clothes, so I could tell that he had came from his job to come watch this. So it was a very cool thing, and apparently it's going to be happening every Tuesday around probably the same time, around noon. It's pretty smart that they're actually doing it at noon. I'm sure it keeps those players happy. Like, they don't want to be waiting all around all night just to go skate in some beer league game. They want to get it out of the way so they can move on with their fun activities. And plus, I think if they did do it at night, they would need to get a bigger venue. Like, I just think there would be way too many people making the trip for that. So I don't know. It was pretty good vibes. I honestly highly recommend for any Blue Jackets fan listening to this podcast that can make the trip to Columbus, go check out one of those chiller ice rinks. Go check out one of these Cap City Elite League games. Pretty cool stuff. It's also it's fun to watch players play in a relaxed state because they were still going very hard. Like, I still saw Cam Atkinson drive very, very hard at the net and try very, very hard to get around Jack Roslovic. And I got to watch a little bit of Boone Jenner play and him make some tape-to-tape passes. And it's very, very interesting. I feel like I keep repeating a lot of words, so I'm sorry about that. But it's really interesting to watch these guys play the 3-on-3 hockey in this fashion as well, because 3-on-3 hockey is still kind of new-ish to the NHL. So as we've moved from that adjustment being made in overtime, what was that, like 7 or 8 years ago, when the NHL decided they were going to cut the 5-on-5 or the 4-on-4 NHL overtime down to 3-on-3. It's really cool to see these guys practice and work on that. So maybe some of the moves that you'll see at these Cap City Elite League games will show up in an NHL game. I don't know. Who's to say? Not me. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up that discussion for you guys today. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. I know that the Jakub Voracek trade, at the time that the Blue Jackets made the trade for him, It was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to drop Cam Atkinson and add a winger that can move the puck around in the O-zone. That was key for the Blue Jackets to do that. And hey, maybe his presence in the locker room, maybe something in the last 2 years helped Patrick Laine become a better hockey player, Johnny Gaudreau become a better hockey player, any one of those guys in the locker room become a better hockey player. I don't know. We will have to wait to see on that one. But just from the outside looking in, and hindsight is 2020, the Jakub Voracek second stint was a waste of time. It should have never happened. And I can prove that to you based off my eyeballs going to watch Cam Atkinson play at the Cap City Elite League game. So, yeah, there's a summary of this episode for you. I hope you all enjoyed it very, very much. And maybe next time Jay will be back and we can talk a little bit about some other things. For example, tomorrow we're going to be doing a little coverage on the 2008 entry-level draft. I'm sorry, what? No, we're going to be doing a review of the 2018 entry-level draft. That's right. Yes, the draft that took place 5 years ago. Why are we doing a review of the 2018 entry-level draft? Well, it's because 5 years, that's exactly how long it should take for an NHL player to go from a draftee to a NHL player. And we're going to look at that draft class and review where they're at. Thank you so much for making this your first listen every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, and the SiriusXM app. I'm Hayden Houshorn. You can find me on Twitter at HaydenH971. You can find Jay on Twitter at _Jacob Foster. Jacob with a K, Foster with an R after the O. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. That one is also on Twitter. You can email us at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.